will be covered in our topic for today. The first one, we will cover the function of lubrication, and then we'll go to the properties of engine lubricant, and then types of engine lubricant. After that, we will cover the grading of engine lubricant, maintenance of the engine, and also type of engine lubricating system. Okay, now this is the list of keywords of the function of an engine lubricant. Engine lubrication is required in engine to do the following for running the engine at its maximum efficiency. First, it is required to reduce the friction between the moving parts. Second is to reduce the power required by moving parts to overcome the friction. Third is to reduce the wear of engine components. Fourth is to reduce the heat generation due to friction between moving parts. Fifth is to absorb the heat generated and helps in engine cooling system. Also to act as seal between piston rings and cylinder walls or cylinder liners. And the most important is as to clean the engine components by removing the dust of any other foreign material entering the engine cylinder. Most motor oils are made from heavier, thicker petroleum hydrocarbon-based stock derived from crude oil with additives to improve certain properties so that the function of the engine will be at optimum state. And it will depend on the viscosity. The viscosity of a liquid can be thought as its thickness or a measure of its resistance to flow. The viscosity must be high enough to maintain a lubricating film, but low enough that the oil can flow around the engine parts under all conditions. And we use viscosity index as a measure of how much the oil's viscosity changes as temperature changes. A higher viscosity index indicates the viscosity changes less with temperature than a lower viscosity index. And we have a few types of engine lubricant. The first one is synthetic motor oil. This motor oil is chemically engineered process where oil molecules are more uniform in shape with fewer impurities and better properties. In general, synthetic oil has better extreme high temperature and low temperature performance and generally formulated with higher performing additive. And the second one is synthetic blend motor oil, or we call it as semi-synthetic. This motor oil uses a mixture of synthetic and conventional base oil for added resistance to oxidation, where compared to conventional oil, and also provide excellent low temperature properties. And then we have the third type. This is the high mileage motor oil. And this motor oil is specifically formulated for late model vehicles or newer vehicles with over than 75 miles thousand high mileage motor oil. And this unique additive and formulation will help to reduce oil burn off and prevent oil leaks in older engines. And the last one is the conventional motor oil, or we call it as a mineral oil, and this is the cheapest among other engine lubricant. And motor oils, these motor oils be formulated from crude oil, and it is recommended for drivers with simple engine design and regular driving style, and is also suitable for low usage car like country, some sort like that. And then we go to the grading or classification. And we go to the grading or classification of engine lubricant. The first one we have SAE, where the motor oils use a rating system developed by the Society of Automotive Engineers to classify oil by its viscosity. Viscosity is a fluid resistant to flow. Fluids that are thin like water have low viscosity, and the fluids that are very thick like honey have high viscosity. Motor oil also changes in viscosity measurement as it's heated or cooled. For example, SAE 10W, SAE 30, and SAE 5W30. And then we have the second one is come from the American Petroleum Institute or API based on the recent technology which is based on its obsoleteness. And it classified into two. The first one is S for spark ignition, which is the petrol engine, and C is the for compression ignition, which is for diesel engine. And both the letter S and C is followed by another letter or alphabet, for example S, M or CF. And under the SAE, we have single grade and also multi-grade. Single grade use the first number such as SAE 10W, where W is stand for the winter, and it is related to how an oil flows when it is cold, such as at engine startup. And then we have the multi-grade, where the viscosity motor oil are able to perform at a wide range of temperature. For example, SAE 0W20 oil, the 0 is the cool temperature viscosity rating, where W is stand for the winter, and the 20 is the high temperature viscosity rating. So SAE 5W30 and SAE 0W30 will flow better at colder temperatures compared to SAE 10W30. The lower the number here, the less it is thickened in the cold. So 5W30 viscosity engine oil thickness less in cold than 10W30. And 10W30 oil will thin out at higher temperature faster than the 10W40 will. So it depends on what number that will have on the multi-grade. As you can see here, this is the example and comparison between the multi-grade and single grade. We can see the SAE 10W. It is very good. It cool at cold temperature, but it is not good at hot temperature because it will be very thin. And we compare to the multi-grade, which is the SAE 10W30, is good at the cold temperature and also good at the hot temperature because the thickness level is okay. And then SAE 30 is not good at cool temperature because the thickness is very thick. Okay, the oil viscosity is very thick, and at hot temperature it will be okay. And we go to the three types of engine lubricating system. The first one is we have full internal force feed, where oil is forced flowing through the galleries to all parts. And the second one is internal force feed and splash, where the pump force oil into galleries to main parts and escaping oil splash from mist to lubricate other parts. And the third one is circulating flash, where the oil scoop from pan and splash forming mist to lubricate other parts. Okay, let me look what will happen to the internal force feed and splash. And in splash lubrication system, the lubrication oil is picked from the oil sump or pan by a dipper provided at the bottom. This is the dipper. And then the dipper provided at the bottom of the connecting rod of piston in each cylinder. And then the connecting rod picks the oil from the bottom and move upward to the engine component. And some oil also reach to a different component like bearings, connecting rods, through splash as mechanical turbulence is generated in the crankcase by the moving components, which further makes the oil sprayed in the form of mist in the crankcase. It will produce mist in the crankcase, and this mist further reach to other engine components like piston, and then piston pin here, and cylinder walls. And the camshaft and valve mechanism is also lubricated by the oil. And although the splash type lubrication system is still being used in the engines these days, but its usage has been found to be limited to small or single cylinder engines, as the splash only is not sufficient to make the oil to reach all critical components of the engine. And then we go to this next, internal external force feed. As splash system has limitation to lubricate all the critical components in an engine, the force feed system is used to generate additional pressure to ensure oil reach all parts essential and desired components for lubrication purposes. Generally, a gear-type pump driven at the camshaft generates the pressure in oil to move from the crankcase to crankshaft and connecting rods, bearings, piston, and valve. As the lubricating oil is supplied to the engine components under pressure, hence the reach of the oil is enhanced to lubricate a remote and farthest point, and this helps in efficient lubrication of engine components and hence in achieving better engine performance. And the yellow in the picture is where the oil from the sump going to in the crankcase. And the third one is circulating splash. Okay. Normally, this kind of circulating splash used in small single-cylinder air-cooled engine, where the oil is cooled from the pan and splash forming mist to lubricate other parts. Now we go to the maintenance. Some scheduled maintenance procedures are, the first one is daily inspection. You must do the daily inspection of the engine oil level when engine is cooled using the dipstick. And the second one is you have to change engine oil at every 500 km or 3 months or every 1000 km for oil filter, whichever comes first for on-road vehicles, and every 400 hours for tractor or as recommended by the oil specification. And also you have to change oil filter and engine oil at every 10,000 km or 6 months, whichever comes first for fully synthetic oil. And you also must follow the manufacturer's recommendation oil grade, whether it is synthetic, semi-synthetic or mineral oil, and also follow the filter schedule. And we also have to always drain the oil when the engine is warmed up to make sure all the oil is drained out. And also after the charging, we have to check whether it is some oil leaks at the component, and we have to keep the scheduled maintenance record. Okay, that's all for today's topic, and thank you for your concentration, and also please refer to the class notes for further reading and understanding.